place to buy useless junk. It employed thousands of people, fostered a sense of community, and kept the surrounding town's economy humming. I turned my camera back on. It doesn't look like much now, but man, to see this place at its peak would have been incredible. These corridors go on for flippin' miles. Look for yourself, Ruinistas, I said, pointing my camera down the long corridor. It went on until it ended in a little ball of light from the central atrium. I could probably do 10 episodes here, I said to the camera. The person who suggested this place said that I should start on this side of the mall. Said that there were some cool ruins, which, duh, but what gassed my pedal was the way they said weird shit happens here. That's something that'll get the old red there in a flash. That was true. Urban exploration videos do well. I'm blessed really, but if you throw in a little supernatural flair, those videos break containment. The views skyrocket and you grow your audience. Some stay praying that your next exploration will have something spooky. Some leave when it doesn't, but your audience grows. Doing this as a job is all about growth. Growth without barriers, no ends. It's a grind, but it beats working in an office. I turned the camera around on my bright, smiling face. The people who came here, regardless of age, shared touchstones. Kids were wowed by the toy stores and visits to Santa in the fall. Teens came of age here, falling in and out of love, and finding that first job. Middle-aged folks would dash in to grab a last-minute present, or get a coffee and enjoy the people watching in the food court. Old folks walked the length of the stores in groups, laughing and staying active. The mall wasn't just a mall. It was a city unto itself. I turned the camera to show a rotting orange Julius stand. Once vibrant orange wallpaper faded and peeled, glass shattered. Machines were busted up and thrown on the floor. And then it died. The economy took a nosedive, traffic slowed, stores sputtered. The x-rays showed dark spots on the lungs. Removal was the only option. The mall cut out the tumors, but each time you go under the knife, the organ functioned with less and less efficiency. Eventually, the losses became too much, and that's all she wrote. I flipped the camera back to my now serious face. It didn't happen all at once, mind you. The big chains were bought out and stripped for parts. Stores closed. Those closures had downstream effects at malls everywhere. We're an image-obsessed culture. If something looks like blight, it's blight. Closed big-box stores are the blightest blights that ever blighted. As I walked toward the location that my tipster had given me, my feet crunched through trash and glass, and God knows what else, that littered the black and white tile floors. Sears went first, Toys R Us, Bed Bath & Beyond, and JCPenney. Without anchors, the place was adrift, and the mall lost its pull with the people. These long, sprawling walkways, chock full of smaller mom-and-pop stores and kiosks, fell as foot traffic slowed. Soon entire wings went dark to save on cost. Pretty crappy, huh? Let's forget about that for now. Want to see how far I can throw this rock? I picked up a rock and hurled it down the long corridor. It landed with a thud somewhere in the dark. I reached down, picked up another one, and I hurled it. It hit an overhead light, sending a rainstorm of glass down to the ground. The pinging on the tile echoed down the hall. Well, crap, gotta be better than that. I reached down and grabbed another rock, or what I assumed was a rock. On closer inspection, though, it wasn't some random chunk of granite. It was a hand. I dropped it before my brain discovered that it was a fake hand, a prop. I cackled, and it was the loudest thing in the quietest place. Jesus Christ, that was wild. Look, Ruinistas, at what I just hauled up. Nearly gave myself a heart attack. I flashed the camera down at the hand. It was realistic at first blush, but the illusion was ruined when you got to the fake blood and bones at the wrist. I picked it back up. Since I'm a solo show now, I should take this with me. Could always use a hand, right? You hear me, Ruinistas? A great joke, right? Right. I laughed. I'm such a dork. Don't worry, I'll edit that out. I stowed the fake hand in my bag and I kept on moving. I strolled past a former Lids store. On the front door, the only remaining glass not broken, was a faded sign that read, Yellow Brick Investment Group, closed for demolition. Since the building was still standing and the sign was as weathered as a South Florida retiree, I didn't worry about any wrecking balls finding me. Yellow Brick Investment Group was the name of the owners of the mall friends. I did a little research into them and there wasn't much out there. It's not surprising. Much of commercial real estate is a shell game among shadowy groups. Was that the company determined that costs had overrun everything and shut it all down? It sat, rotting like a whale on a beach. The stink infected the town, and things went from bad to worse. At first, there were rumors that somebody would buy the area from Yellow Brick, but a sale never happened. Several deals died at the last minute. Cherry Hill's rot apparently even got into the local real estate game. Redevelopment. Like all these dead ghost boxes, redevelopment became a buzzy idea in the town. You have prime real estate. It should be transformed into something worthwhile. At various points over the last 20 years, Cherry Hill was supposed to transform into a modern drive-in, an apartment complex, a minor league baseball park, but none of those happened. Instead, it became an eyesore, a blight, a faded memory of better times. And that's my bread and butter. I'm always searching for cool, unknown places to explore. Thankfully, there's no shortage of dead and dying buildings. I've been to most of the states and been in buildings as diverse as an old insane asylum, an abandoned Taco Bell, and a rundown bottling plant. I've encountered upset homeless people, bored police, mouthy Karens, and a few spooky encounters that I couldn't quite explain. As I said, those videos always do numbers. To think I originally started this channel as a way to test the new GoPro that my ex had gotten me. Now it was my career. In a million years, I would never have imagined that this is a possibility. The person who contacted me through YouTube told me that there were all kinds of legends about this place. A little research showed that to be the case. When it was open, there were some people who went missing, but that's hardly unique to Cherry Hill. Every mall in America, and I would wager the wider world as well, had missing people cases. You can't throw that much humanity into one spot without our worst instincts getting a hold of us. And for these spooky encounters, well, I found a few videos and, like most of the time, they left me wanting. A lot of orbs or indeterminate sounds in the distance. That evidence is easily faked or exaggerated, but people primed to believe anything supernatural will do so if given the chance. I hate to say I use that philosophy to help grow my channel, but I do. Confirming belief through content is how half our economy works. In the business of capturing eyeballs, you do what you have to do. Wouldn't it be wild if that hand came to life and walked around with me like Thing? That would make me Wednesday, I suppose. I'm probably too cheery for Wednesday though. Maybe Thursday, her distant, more upbeat cousin. Before I head into any building, I like to do as much research as possible about it. For one, it helps fill in the dead air of me walking around. Otherwise, it would just be 20 minutes of me singing or whistling to myself as I stroll among the ruins. I'm not that captivating. I've got to bring more to the table to keep my audience. And the other major reason is that I like to know what I'm going into. Why did the place get abandoned? Was it poor business practices, or was the building condemned? There's a world of difference in how you explore an area that might collapse on you versus one that sold a crappy product. As far as I could tell, Cherry Hill was the victim of a changing world and a rapidly shifting economy. As I mentioned, Yellow Brick Investment Group was new to me. These big builders are as shady as beach umbrellas, and following their money always ends up in a big circle. From the little I found, they own properties all around the world, and they strive to create unique shopping experiences for every kind of consumer. Sure, but it sells. I like to explore places at night because there are fewer looky-loos, and it adds to the general atmosphere of the videos. And ghostly encounters and at night go hand in hand. The threat of danger to myself, a sick but undeniable thrill for some viewers, helps push my numbers up. And that's why my Saturdays are not spent going on a date, but instead walking around an old dog food factory by myself. But Cherry Hill was the most beautiful place that I had ever been to. Weird to give that designation to a suburban mall, but it was true. And the grandeur, the pizzazz, the size, in its prime it must have been a sight to behold. Even in its current dilapidated state, the earmarks of past glory were everywhere. Its dominant colors were white, black, and gold, and remnants of that combination were everywhere. The tiles were all black and white, except for the thresholds of every store, which were all gold. Every time you entered a store, you were literally following the yellow brick road. A cheeky touch, but I loved the idea. The overhead lights featured elaborate, retro, futuristic fixtures, the 1970s version of a future that never came. Interspersed between the irregular lights were the remains of chandeliers. On the ground below them, the dried out and broken ruins of wishing well fountains. Broken faces and figures adorned the central shaft of the fountain, but most had either been ripped away or had dongs drawn on them. The corridors themselves kept the retro-futuristic aesthetic going. The walls were decorated with a white metal mesh that curved and gave the impression that you were walking down large tubes on the deck of a never-ending starship. Advertisements, benches, and store openings broke up the mesh wall. Each entrance had rounded front windows of polished glass. Half of these were smashed to bits, but if you squinted, you would see what we lost. So, before I got here, I found the blueprints for Cherry Hill online. Crazy what a few bucks into Wi-Fi connection can get you. And this mall was single level but huge. Sprawl, not tall. A spoken hub design, with an anchor store at one end and long corridor ending in a glass-roofed food court atrium at the hub. If you squint, you can kinda make out some of the moonlight coming in through the glass. We are absolutely going to check that area out. Yellow Brick purposely designed Cherry Hill using a spoken hub system. And they've done studies on shopping habits and found that if consumers have even mild feelings of being stuck in a maze, they'll stop and browse just to pause the march. You browse at enough stores, the odds of purchasing something increase. You've seen this at IKEA. Paths purposely twist you around so you forget why you came there in the first place, but you end up getting more things than you intended. It's why you probably have a Smorgastorgan dresser in your house and or a love of Swedish meatballs in your heart. I strolled down the corridors taking B-roll for my channel and occasionally throwing in some colorful commentary and jokes. Half of the time, none of this footage will get used, but I would rather have it and not need it than the other way around. Something along the wall caught my eye and it made me stop in my tracks. A door with a restricted personnel sign on it. Oh, that's my catnip. I have to see what's inside. That's the thrill of this job. Ruinistas, are you seeing what I'm seeing? If you're new here, let me tell you, nothing gets read like seeing a door to a restricted area. The rule breaker in all of us wants to go through that door. Needs to go through that door. We've got time for a detour, right? Right. I walked over to the door and twisted the handle. It snapped off. I held half of it as the door squeaked open. I kicked it with my foot and the hinges screamed like a banshee. Inside was a dark hallway that ended at a T-junction and split in two directions. Things skittered and fat droplets fell into standing water. And the funk was intense. Well, it smells horrible. Let's hope that's the worst of it. I said into the camera that I mounted in front of me. What do we think, left or right? I took a step through the door and made it 3 feet before something on the ground caught my attention. I squatted, brushed away some of the dirt, and my jaw dropped. Below me, through a small crack in the tile, there was the flicker of a malfunctioning fluorescent light. What in the... The rumble rattled my bones before my mind processed what was going on. The ground beneath me gave way. I swung my arms, trying to gain balance or take flight, whichever happened first. Since I didn't rise off the ground, my flailing became an attempt to grab the rusted rebar poking through the concrete. I missed. The fall was both long and short. A weightless plunge that at points made me feel like I was falling and flying. For a moment, it was fun and thrilling, until I hit the floor. I landed butt first, the pain exploding in my tailbone and radiating up my spine. By the grace of the Lord, the larger chunks of cement had missed crushing my body, but slammed closer than I was comfortable with. Several smaller chunks, though, strafed my ribs, legs, and arms. Crimson slashes across my skin arrived, as if an unseen artist decided that I needed a bit more color. Welts on my body rose like the dead. I rolled onto my side, my hands clutching at my tailbone and tears falling down my face. I screamed a string of curse words that would have left the Fifth Fleet embarrassed. My horrid words bounced off the walls back at me like taunts. I allowed myself to writhe in pain for a beat, rubbing my butt like a genie was going to come out. It didn't make the pain go away, but it soothed me all the same. When I finally stood, my body creaked like an elderly man climbing out of an easy chair. I arched my back. The pain rushed through every nerve down the main line. My vertebrae mimicked the snapping of a doo-wop song. Well, that sucked. Glancing up at the hole, it was obvious that there was no way for me to climb back up. The walls were high with nothing to hoist myself up on. The floor above that hadn't collapsed, but it still could. There were no conveniently placed ladders nearby. It's moments like this where I wished this was still a 2-person operation. An extra set of hands would be amazing right now. Just not the one that I had stowed in my bag. But since I was solo, I was trapped, stuck in the sub-basement of an employee-only area of a dead mall. I reached into my pocket and searched for my phone, but when I did, something sharp pierced my skin. I yanked my hand out, and a red dot slowly filled my thumbprint ridges. Probably not a good sign. Acting with more caution, I slid my hand under my phone and gently pulled it out. Shards of the cracked screen caught on the pocket fabric as I yanked it out. Once it was in my hand, I got the full scope of the damage. In short, it was totaled. Useless for anything except recycled parts and maybe the ugliest paperweight that you've ever seen. I tossed the corpse of a phone into my bag inside, and taking a centering breath, I let my brain reset. I had fallen into an area without a direct way out, but that didn't mean there wasn't a way out. I was sure there was an employee exit or a loading ramp somewhere in this labyrinth under the mall. To find salvation, I was going to have to do what I did best: explore. I gathered my wits, pulled up my flashlight, and headed into the darkness of the tunnel. Unsure of how long it would take me to get out of here, I knew that I'd be a lot more cautious walking around Cherry Hill when I resurfaced. I had been lucky the fall hadn't been more serious. You don't get lucky like that twice. And there were no lights down here, and once I got away from any stray moonlight pouring into the new opening, nothing was visible. Thankfully, I had just replaced the batteries in my flashlight. This narrow beam of white light was my only guide down here. There wouldn't be any maps with helpful "you are here" signs. Without this, I'd be doomed to the dark. There was a skittering behind me. I turned and my beam reflected on a pair of beady little eyes. Rats. If there was one, then there were more. I turned back toward the direction that I had been heading. I wanted to put as much distance between Remy and his pals as possible. Oh shit, no way. To my surprise, the hallway in front of me turned to the right. I quickened my steps. If I turned, it had to end in a door at some point. But as I rounded the corners, something that shouldn't be there at all struck me. Light. While darkness shrouded the mall above me, this hidden area was dimly lit by buzzing fluorescent bulbs. There wasn't much juice running to them, and they gave off a faint strobe effect, but there was enough light for me to stow my flashlight. Unlike the corridors above us, this hallway wasn't meant for consumers, purely made to shuffle employees from place to place. The lights illuminated the area directly under them, but faded before they splashed against the walls. The buzzing meshed with my footfalls, creating a discordant beat in the hallway. Electronic music via ambience. I kept my head on a swivel in case I came across any deranged people hiding down here. Dead malls were havens for transients of varying mental states. Thankfully, thus far, the only footsteps were my own. I walked a good 30 feet before the path turned left. I followed that for another 50 or so feet before the path turned right. I zigzagged down these passageways for about half an hour, deeper into the complex. I wasn't sure which way was which. I just kept on moving forward because I believed it would eventually lead me to an exit. After my fifth left turn, my salvation came into view. An exit sign over a door 50 feet away, and that put some pep in my step. I flipped on my camera. Oh, thank God GoPros are built like tanks, and I broke into my YouTube persona. Well, it's taken a lot longer than I thought, but someone finally answered my prayers. It's the exit. I'm so happy that I could skip. In fact, come on, let's skip. And I did just that. I skipped a good distance, blithely singing a cheerful tune. My pain subsided from these sudden bursts of joy. I would pay for it later. Spines rarely let you forget their trauma, but that was a problem for tonight. Right now, I beamed. Oh, Cherry Hill, you nearly got me. But red doesn't quit easily. Okay, Ruinistas, here we go. Let's try this exploration again, I said, holding the door handle. 1, 2, 3. I pushed the door wide, ready to be blinded by buzzy parking lot lights or discover an oil-stained loading dock ramp. Maybe a set of stairs back up to the main level. But all that was there was another spaceship corridor, like the one I had fallen through. This wasn't an exit to the outside, but to another underground section of the mall. Oh, what the hell? Everything was exactly the same. White metal mesh walls, blacked out shops, buzzing overhead lights that led toward a central hub. A second central hub. A second central hub that shouldn't exist. Cherry Hill was a sprawl mall, not a compact one. There weren't levels. Everything was ground floor. If this were just an employee area, why were there old stores here? Where were the offices, the loading docks, the break room with that shitty lukewarm coffee? Where the hell was I? I shuffled out into the middle of the corridor and I stared down the endless stretch. If this was like its upstairs duplicate, it had to end at a hub. But from where I stood, there was nothing to be seen. And the white mesh metal flowing forward into infinity. A glance in the opposite direction revealed the same dimly lit walkway lined with closed doors, mall as far as the eye could see. It had to end somewhere, right? With only my sanity left to lose, I picked a direction and started hiking. To keep myself from going insane, I kept recording with my GoPro. If nothing else, the camera would be my Wilson as I tried to find safe passage off the island. Well, things have taken a turn, I said, kicking an old slush puppy cup into the shadows. What I thought was a way out turned into a way into another section of the mall. A place not on any maps. I might find the fabled western route to the Spice Islands. I walked, mumbling to myself, for about 10 minutes. Along the way, I passed closed and boarded up mall stores. Some brands were familiar, the sharper image or Spencer's Gifts, but the majority were local mom and pop stores. Best Cookies and Pies, Logistical Edge Computing, Fan Dan's Fan Den, a non-stop parade of dead or forgotten brands, rockets that exploded on the pad instead of shooting into the stars. Boy, what I wouldn't give to hear someone else's voice right now, I lamented. Even a madman might provide Red with some information on how to get out of here. That and how the garbage can spoke to him and said that we were all disposable in the eyes of God. A flicker at the far end of the corridor caught my eye. An overhead light briefly burned at full force. While it was at a distance I couldn't discern. 100 yards, 200, a mile. It didn't stay there. The blinking moved from light to light down the line, each time a little bit closer. My body went still. I was frozen. I held the electric blinking above me with the same reverence the people beholding the dance of the Northern Lights have. More than anything, this signaled to me that there had to be somebody else down here. Someone was manipulating the lights. Hello? I screamed, my voice echoing into nothingness. Hello? The blinking lights kept moving toward me, but the speed increased. One overhead winked out after another. Sections of the white mesh disappeared and reappeared as the burnout raced toward me. My lizard brain was sending out danger signals, but my higher brain wasn't listening. It was light. How dangerous could it be? But still my body took survival orders seriously, and without even noticing, I slowly backed toward the mesh walls, retreating into the shadows. But it never reached me. The light stopped and steadily blinked in front of the doors of a store about 60 yards from me. On off, on off, on off. I came out of the shadows and yelled, "Is anybody down there? I'm lost." Every light instantly winked out. I stumbled back toward the wall as if something would come barreling down the corridor. After waiting for something to pass, it became clear that nothing was coming. I was probably safe. Well, relatively safe anyway. I switched on my flashlight and I continued my hike. Oh, so much for the overheads, I said to the red light of my camera. Thank God I packed a flashlight. If you're new to the channel, the time that I was visiting the Blanchard Witch House, I had forgotten too. I didn't finish my story. The single overhead that had been blinking started back up. 1, 2, 3 blinks before it shut off again. Somebody was directing me toward the store. A lighthouse keeper sending a beacon of hope to a wayward vessel. "Hello?" I yelled. No one called back. Instead, the store's interior lights came to life. Low like the overheads, but all of them together made the shop glow like a smoldering fire. I called out again, but the only response I got was the faintest whisper of music playing. At first, it reminded me of carnival music, but with a sharper edge, more sinister. Something wicked this way comes. When the store's marquee illuminated, the creepy music made more sense. It was a Spook City store. The Spook City was a regional Halloween store that would crop up in old buildings starting at the end of September and continuing until the night itself. They were hyenas of the retail world, claiming the remains after the hard work has already been done. For whatever this reason, this was the place that I was being shepherded towards. Maybe I'd be lucky, and there would be an exit there. Like a moth to a flame, though, I went. Each step toward the store reverberated in my body, dread sneaking up my legs, finding any exposed skin and sinking its needle fangs into me, injecting my blood with a poisonous doubt. But I brushed the snake away and kept moving. I had no choice. I tried not to slow my stride, but my lower brain again intervened and did it anyway. I couldn't argue. As I got closer to the front door, the mix of all the animatronic decorations going off echoed around me. A cavalcade of shrieks, screams, evil laughter, and howls floated out of the front and filled the corridor. Through the broken glass, I spied dozens of red, green, and blue glowing eyes staring out at me. Metal creatures waiting to scare a flesh and blood person. My heart fluttered when I finally got to the opening. At the back of the store was the glowing red beacon that I had hoped for, an exit sign. I wasn't sure if it would lead me out or to another layer of previously undiscovered mall, but it was my best chance of escaping this place. Someone had guided me here for a reason. Okay, well, I have to cross a Halloween store filled to the brim with robots designed to induce horror in order to... All the lights inside the store went out, all except the glowing red exit sign. I sighed. Update. I have to cross a Halloween store filled to the brim with robots designed to induce horror in the dark in order to get to the exit. Should be a piece of cake, I'm sure. I pulled my flashlight back out and pressed the button, but no lights came out. I bashed it in my palm, but it stayed dead. Sighing, I stowed it back into my bag, cracked my neck, and took my first, unsure steps into the store. My first impression is that this place had been closed for a long time. Everything was covered in an inch of dust, and there were spiderwebs so large that they would trap Buicks. I leaned down and picked up a fallen sign that read, "Satan's Little Helper, 1998's scariest decoration." I scanned the room but failed to find Satan's Little Helper anywhere nearby. The store was a maze of decorations. In front of me was a coven of dusty witches standing over a cauldron. Hallways led in opposite directions around the girls. Off to the left were walls of masks and other costume accessories. This is probably where my extra hand came from. To the right were even more elaborate animatronics and props. At some point, I assumed these paths reconnected, possibly toward a checkout counter in the middle of the store, but I couldn't tell in the dark. Pairs of unblinking eyes dotted the darkness. Every once in a while, a robot would get triggered and shriek or scream or laugh, rising or rocking or swiping off at the unseen thing that set them off. I assumed the rats that lived here were probably used to these things, and they paid them no mind as they zipped around them. Unlike my disease-carrying pals, though, I was a bundle of quickly unraveling nerves. And the central witch came to life, turning its head to me and rising ever so slightly.
Who goes there?
It said, adding a cackle and a scream as an exclamation point. Its eyes twitched back and forth, searching for something that it would never actually see.
We make food out of your kind.
More laughter. The two flanking witches joined in now, scanning up and down for kids with bags of candy.
You there? Who do you think you are? Oh, sister, I think this one looks delicious.
Cackling, it set off other robots in the darkness. Soon, a wave of screams came from all corners of the room. Agony, despair, death. All the flavors of a killing field rippled around me. I shivered. Not a fan of this turn, gang, I said to the camera. My eyes never left the main witch that had greeted me. It swayed a bit from side to side, its red eyes floating in the dark. The witch was a foot taller than I was. I glared at it and shook my head. I would have hated seeing you while trick-or-treating. Its head turned toward me.
You'll die in here.
And that couldn't have been one of the pre-recorded tracks, but the other alternative was that this thing was freelancing. That was impossible. I laughed, more nerves than anything, and said, "Hey, that was rude, you know that?" The whine of old mechanical parts kicking into gear filled the space as the witch inched forward. I took a step back, quickly spying the door in case I needed to split, before returning my gaze to the witch. Its eyes were burning bright crimson. It smiled so wide that the ancient rubber mask that covered the machinery cracked, and it flaked away at my feet, exposing its robotic gears. The witch whispered,
You'll never leave this place. You will die alone.
I took another step back. Yeah, that definitely wasn't pre-recorded. The witch raised its arms over its head as if she were praying to some unseen god and fell forward towards me. I screamed, stumbled back, and fell to the ground with a thud. My spine groaned and my mouth followed suit. The witch squirmed, attempting to crawl to me, but there was a pop from its back, and the scent of burned wiring filled the air. It went still. Holy shit.
Sister, did you tell this one they were going to die? Painfully.
The other added.
And away from any loved ones, assuming anybody could love this creature.
More cackling. These two didn't move, but something else on the store's robotic side did. Something a whole hell of a lot larger than a rat. A shadowy figure the size of a golf cart moved through the Halloween decoration area. It knocked down a few robots, sending them screaming as they fell face first on the ground, bits of their broken bodies snapping off and skittering near my feet. It growled, a bassy, rumbling tuba blast that rattled the glass. I shrank to the ground and quietly crawled toward the mask side of the store. Hundreds of faces hanging on the wall, every set of dead eyes trained on me as I scuttled through the dark, searching for a place to hide. Behind me, the large growling, unseen thing was pushing through the other decorations, sending them screaming to the ground. It was getting closer. I needed to hide. Swiveling around, I spied a table with various body parts on it, But rubber arms and bloody legs aren't what thrilled me. The floor-length tablecloth did though. I was about to head for it when the shadow figure leaped through the air and landed on the mask side of the store. Its boxy head rose and sniffed the air. It was zeroing in on me. I needed to hide and fast. If only I had someone to help distract it. If only I had an extra hand. I nearly laughed out loud. I yanked out the old decoration that I had found and I hurled it to the opposite side of the store. It landed among the robots with a crash. One of them screamed as it fell to the ground. Without hesitation, the creature leaped toward the disturbance. That gave me enough time to hide. I lifted the skirt and found just enough space to cram under there. Without hesitation, I crawled in. The shop was dark, but under the tablecloth, I was in a black hole. I pulled my knees up to my chin and tried to fold my body in half. When I was a kid, I used to imagine that if I tried hard enough, I could transform my body into part of the surrounding walls, to blend seamlessly into the background until I popped out and surprised people. I tapped that part of my brain again, this time omitting any desire to surprise anyone. Outside of my little world, the massive creatures were slinking around, knocking over displays and products. Its snuffling and growls intercut with random cackling and haunted howling. When this creature lumbered down an aisle, the ground shook. Even though I had no idea what this thing was, my brain started filling in the blanks. It was something so horrific that it would easily be a top-selling decoration at Spook City.
Where did it go?
One of the witches asked, the cheap wiring in its voice modulator sending its voice up and down the vocal register like a talking slide whistle.
It's alone and scared, as it should be.
The other said.
It's only a matter of time.
The slide whistle witch said.
They all fall eventually.
More cackling. Like two old crows on a fence watching field hands toil in the sun, content to only observe and reap the benefits of someone else's sowing. The creature finally crossed back over to the mask section of the store. Each thunderous step shot through my body like a bullet. I inched back from the hem of the skirt as if those precious few centimeters would matter if this thing knocked over the table. I would kill for another set of eyes, another brain to bounce escape ideas off of. When I first started urban exploring, it wasn't a solo affair. My ex and I used to go out together. In fact, that was who had gotten me into it. I had always been curious, but I never took the leap. My ex said, take new chances, and I decided why not, for a New Year's resolution that had morphed into a living, breathing thing. Working as a duo was fantastic. It bonded us and deepened our connection. Suddenly, we spent hours trawling for fresh places to explore and excitedly gushing about their weird histories. We made new friends and memories. Ironically, in the rotting bones of these old buildings, I believed that we were building a solid foundation. But it turns out that the rot gets us all eventually. The loud footsteps rattled my gear. The thing lumbered down the aisle, knocking things over as it moved, unaware of or not caring about the destruction that it left in its wake. I held my breath and I closed my eyes. I wished it would go away, but wishing never did anything but raise expectations and precipitate quick downfalls. After all, I wished my relationship hadn't ended, and now I was stuck under a table in a twisted, dead mall with some bloodthirsty creature searching for me. It walked past the table. It snuffled and the air made the tablecloth waver. The stench of the breath infested my nasal passageway. Roadkill cooking on asphalt. Vomit raced up my throat, but I chewed it back. My body trembled. My salvation was as thin as the tablecloth keeping me hidden. As this thing circled my table, more movement came from the other side of the store. Near the witches, another decoration was slowly dragging itself across the chipped tile floor. It was sturdy, metallic, and as it scooted along, it would occasionally let out a goofy Halloween howl, something that would scare trick-or-treaters but would leave adults laughing. As it approached, I wasn't laughing, nor was I the only one surprised. The creature spun around to stare at the creeping abomination. As it did, its bulk knocked the front leg of the table. It rose and my stomach flipped. As it landed, the rubber-covered knob squeaked against the tile. I inched myself back, trying to keep my feet from sticking out but failing. My shoes skidded against the tile, squeaking like a distressed mouse, and it exposed my position. But in the hubbub of the crawling robot and the growling beast, the noise went unnoticed. Thank God for minor miracles. Scrunched up but secure under the table, I concluded that this wouldn't last. One of these two groups would find me. Instead of working together, these two evil forces were on a collision course. If they fought, I could escape. And by the time that one side beat the other, I would be well on my way to my car. I had to flee. And to make a seamless escape, though, I needed another set of eyes. I cursed my ex again for his shit before an idea popped into my brain. The GoPro. I unhooked it from the harness and placed it on the ground. My hands were trembling so bad when I placed it on the tile, the edges tapped against the ground. I needed my other hand to steady my grip and stop the tapping. I locked my eyes on the screen as I inched the lens out. At first, it was an all-black tablecloth, but as I pierced through the veil, a picture formed. The low light made the camera take a while to find something to focus on, but when it did, my heart plunged into a bath of my own stomach acid. The crawling decoration was a black-robed reaper with a busted pumpkin for a head. The right eye was an artificial candle that flickered in the dark. Its left eyeball was out of the socket and it bounced along next to its body as it slithered along the floor. A snail trail of eyeball liquid created a trench in the layers of dust. As disturbing as that was, the creature blocking its path made it seem like a Disney cartoon. It was a person, or at least it had been one at one time. The bulk of the body was smaller than I had assumed, but it was still about double the thickness of an average man. Matted brown hair that resembled scaled armor covered its body. At first blush, its limbs appeared too short for its body, but once I moved the camera, it was obvious that it had folded its limbs in half, and it was moving on hardened elbow and knee joints. If it stood and fully extended itself, it would easily be 9 feet tall with a reach that would be the envy of every pro basketball player in history. And while the body was in the same realm as man, the head was not. Above the powerful neck and shoulders sat a large, squat head lined with deep, oozing wounds. Green pus mixed with bright red blood, giving the face a gleaming sheen. It would weep the concoction onto its matted chest hair where it would harden. If drops hit the floor, they sizzled and left little burn rings in their wake. Its large, round, yellow eyes bulged out from the oozing wounds, never blinking, save for when a silver tongue darted out to moisten them. When the pumpkin-headed reaper got within striking distance, the creature crouched and it growled. The robot ignored the warnings and kept following its code, ever moving forward towards me. It never even got close. With blurring speed, the creature shot out its folded arms and snatched the robot off the floor. It held its body over its head and it let out a primal scream that shattered the remaining Spook City windows. With effortless grace, it tore the pumpkin reaper in half. The mechanical innards sparked and smoked. It hurled the remains in opposite directions. The bottom half skidded back towards the robots, sliding in front of the witches. who bellowed as its battered brethren came to a halt near their feet. They were babbling in some archaic language, but I didn't need a translator to know that they were pissed. The top half of the body cartwheeled through the air and slammed into the wall of masks near the table. I winced as it struck the rack. The slap of rubber masks landing all around me, like somebody with plungers for feet walking up a wall. One slid under the tablecloth and it landed at my feet. A pale white face with a massive grinning mouth stared up at me. The crimson of its gums was the only pop of color, save for the black lips and yellow dagger teeth. Its wide, deep-set eyes were cloudy white plastic that conjured up demonic possession. I nudged it away from my foot and pretended that it wasn't there.
Sister, we're the only ones who are supposed to capture the customers.
One witch said.
Not this abomination.
Just because it used to be one of them doesn't mean it gets to capture them.
Came the response from the other witch. The creature sniffled and let out a warning growl. It sat back on its haunches, staring at the robot side of the room, ready to strike if the need arose. I didn't understand this conflict. They both wanted to get me but focused on getting each other instead. Whatever. While these two groups were having a pissing contest, I would sneak over to that exit and get out of here. I adjusted my pack and stowed away my GoPro, readying myself for the journey. Moving quickly and quietly is a skill in the urban exploration world, and I become quite good at it. The trickiest part would be exiting the table, but after that it would be... The possessed mask flapped like a manta ray's wings, those cloudy white globes staring up at me. The brows narrowed and the grin grew wider. It started hooting like a baboon, sending out a warning to anyone that it had found me. "Oh, screw this," I yelled, stomping my foot into its face and flinging it away. I stood, pushed the table off me, and sent it flying towards the creature. The creature and the robots turned their attention toward me. On the walls behind me, the remaining masks all started screaming, some flinging themselves off the walls and rolling toward where I stood. The creature growled and stood, fully extending its legs. Its head scraped the ceiling. It unfolded its arms and its knuckles tapped the floor. Behind him, the robots all shuffled in place, their hardwired brains struggling to process what was happening. And guided more by feelings than logic, I understood that. I ran. Masks hooted, goblins, clowns, serial killers, and others fluttered in the breeze, attempting to dive bomb me. I swatted some away, but others landed and sank their teeth into my flesh. I screamed and took the corner hard, slamming into a rack and sending it and me sprawling to the floor. The creature leaped, landing directly over me. It roared and the stench of decaying bodies made my eyes water. The pus oozed into long droplets that hovered over me, waiting for when gravity would take control and send it screaming toward my face. A few shook loose, missing me but leaving burn marks on the floor. I glanced over just as a mask jumped from the top shelf and came floating down toward me, screaming and snapping its rubbery teeth. Without hesitation, I snatched it out of the air and hurled it at the creature's face. It had difficulty wielding its gangly arms to stop it, and the mask sank into the nape of its neck. It bit down and the creature let out a scream and scrambled to pull it away. Another mask skipped me and jumped at the creature. The rest followed suit. The creature was being swarmed. It stumbled away, doing its best to yank off any of the parasites, but finding the task nearly impossible. It roared, shrank back its arms, and plucked them off. I didn't hesitate to take this moment of chaos to make my escape. Kicking away from the mass of moving horror in front of me, I sprang to my feet and spied the exit sign at the back of the store. The glowing crimson was a welcome beacon in the dark. A zombie scarecrow's mask came screaming at me, but I swatted it away and sprinted for the door. 10 feet. I tore through the maze of aisles, occasionally clipping them and sending the contents flying to the ground, but I kept moving. 8 feet. Rustling somewhere in front of me. It had to be the robots. The exit was on their side of the store. Whatever. 5 feet. My ankle caught the corner of the shelf and pain exploded up my leg. I sprawled on the ground and skidded toward a pillar. My back slammed into it and a second explosion of pain racked my whole body. Every bit of air rushed out of my lungs. I struggled to gather some back. My face reddened and my chest tightened. The muscles along my spine twitched in pain. I finally sucked in a breath, my color returning to normal, and I rolled onto my stomach to push myself up. The robotic witch's boot stomped down in front of me.
You aren't getting away that easily!
It said with a cackle. And behind me, the other witch walked out of the shadows, brandishing its massive cauldron spoon. It pointed it at me and spat.
We're out of treats. You'll have to settle for the trick.
I was surrounded 2 against 1. I was alone, always alone.
They'll free us if we bring her in.
The first witch said.
Finally,
Came the response. It snapped the spoon at my midsection like a slap shot. My rib cracked and at least 2 of them broke away from the cage. The muscles contracted and tightened. The boa-like vice grip made me gasp from the pain. It reared back to hit me again. As the spoon came slamming toward me, I anticipated it and grabbed on tightly. I yanked the robot to the ground and it smashed nose first into the tile. Its head popped off and rolled away, the sparking and smoking circuits crackling behind it. The other witch shrieked. I popped to my feet. Pain gripped my body and I should have just laid down and rested for 10 years until I healed. But I was running on spite and rage. Without hesitation, I swung the spoon at its head. It snapped hard to the left, sparks crackling from the wound. Raising the spoon high over my head, I brought it down with all the anger coursing through my veins. The blow dislodged the head and sent it skittering down the aisle with the other. Its body momentarily stood before crashing down to my feet in a pile of gears and cogs and Halloween-themed slogans bursting from its melting voice box. I dropped the spoon and burst for the exit. As soon as my hands hit the smooth metal bar, relief rushed through my body. My various injuries dissipated. I sighed and pushed open the door. A wave of cool air came rushing in. My skin prickled. I gave one last glance at the chaos of the Spooktown store. Only God had a clue what the hell this was, but I was glad that I was leaving it behind. I stepped to the other side. I let the door close behind me and took a few cautious steps into this void. It was dark. I reached out and tried to find the wall, and my fingers finally found it. The tips curled around a cool metal mesh. About 100 yards in front of me, an overhead light popped on. "No," I whispered. "It can't." The light exposed my fear. More corridors, more closed doors, more mall. "It can't." The lights raced towards me. I hung my head. Tears stung my eyes. I had never felt more alone than I did in that moment. I dropped to my knees and sobbed into my hands. And behind me, a small, timid voice cried out, "Hello?"